Welcome, everyone. Tonight is the 12th of June. This is the Select Board meeting, the town of Kennebunkport. It is currently 5:03. I'll call the meeting to order. We will be entering executive session per MRSA 1, Section 405-6E to consult with the town attorney to discuss legal rights and duties. Do we need a motion? Have a motion to enter executive session?
Second.
Second?
Second.
Yes? Any discussion on that? All in favor? We are in executive session.
Back on.
Welcome tonight, ladies and gentlemen. We have returned from executive session. I'll call the session to end. The session was per MRSA 1, Section 504-6E, to consult with the town attorney to discuss legal rights and duties. There were no actions taken during that meeting. So we are on the third item in the agenda. It's the Pledge of Allegiance to our flag. Please rise and join me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Item number 4 is the approval of the May 9th and May 22nd Select Board meetings.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor? It is passed. Item 5 is our public forum. This is an opportunity for anyone who wants to address the board with any issue that is not on the agenda. Anyone present wish to speak? Dave, how about in TV land?
We have 10 people, but no hands raised.
All righty. We will move along to item 6. Item 6, this is a public hearing, and it's on the proposed amendment to Chapter 160, Section 10, regarding unlawful parking in fire lanes. And the reason this has been brought up is that the town has changed the fine level for parking in a fire lane. And currently, areas by fire hydrants are not considered fire lanes, if you can believe that. So what this is doing is just making it clear in our ordinance, or in our, is that an ordinance? It is an ordinance, that we are including fire hydrants as a marked fire lane. The parking fine is $265, so we're really trying to be serious about it. And this is an issue not just by fire, but it's also been complicating parking issues in several locations in town where people are just getting a little bit too close, and there isn't an obvious fine noting the violation.
And Chief Simeone crafted the language. I don't know if he has anything to
Chief?
add.
No, nothing to add. Basically, we just, it was lacking in the ordinance, any type of way to enforce those areas adjacent to fire hydrants in a way that was, probably going to be more of a deterrent. So we needed to kind of loop those fire hydrant areas back into the ordinance, into the fire lane, so that, the fine kind of reflects the violation, so.
Thanks, Chief. And the purpose of a public meeting is to gather public information and comments, so I will now open the public meeting and ask if there are any comments that anyone would wish to make. Dave?
No hands raised.
With your permission, I will close the public meeting and now ask if I could please have a motion to accept the change.
So moved.
Second.
I have a first and a second. Any final discussion? All in favor? 5-0. All right, that was so much fun. We're going to do it again. This is another public meeting that we will be opening. This time it's to consider a new liquor and special amusement license for the Seabiscuit Hotel Group, doing business as Port, Fish, and Chop House. These are the new folks at Stripers. So Stripers has now become the Port, Fish, and Chop House. Because this is a new license and not a renewal, our rules are that we open a public hearing on it. So I wish to now open the public hearing and ask, is there any comment from those attending? Dave?
No hands raised.
Hearing none, we will close the public hearing, and can I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Have a first and a second. Any discussion? And vote. Thank you, 5-0. Number 8, this is the renewal of a liquor license, so it does not need a public hearing. It's a renewal. And a renewal of a special amusement license for Allison's in Dock Square, doing business as Allison's Restaurant at 11 Dock Square. The staff has recommended approval of both of these licenses.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion?
Nope.
All in favor? 5-0. Number 9, consider a renewal for a liquor license for the Tides Beach Club, LLC, 930 Kings Highway. This license has been brought forward a second time. The revisions to the license remove drinks to go and the serving of alcohol on the front lawn. This brings it in conformance to the present NOV that was stated some time ago.
And we appreciate the Tides working with us on this.
Very much so, very much so. So, we have, and is there any comment, anyone wish to address the board on this?
There we go. Rob Wengel, 873 Kings Highway. I want to submit formally, I've done it via email, but in front of a public forum, a petition that was signed by the many members of the community. Let me give you copies.
For the record, thank you.
Both the language of the petition as well as the signatures. I'm doing this as a representative of the community. Many people who were not able to attend the previous meetings about the Tides liquor license showed up coming back as summer residents and were very surprised to see a lot of changes at the Tides. There are 503 signatures on that petition that were gathered in 72 hours, and then we closed the petition. It is not a formal legal petition that would be, follow ordinances to get on a ballot per se, because approximately 60% of the signers are residents of the town, so about 300 or so, but the rest are friends and visitors who really appreciate the Tides. So I'd like to read it so it's in the record. The title is Reinstate the Tides Liquor License, Capacity, and Food Services. As residents of Goose Rocks and Kennebunkport, we believe that the Tides Beach Club is a vital and valuable part of our community, a good business neighbor. For many, it serves as a gathering place for friends, neighbors, and families, providing an important sense of community. It is a place where many milestones are celebrated and memories are made. Many of our children have worked at the Tides, earning needed income and learning positive customer service skills while reinforcing the importance of a good work ethic. The Tides has contributed financially and through volunteer efforts to preserving Goose Rocks Beach. We believe the Tides has operated their food and beverage service over the recent past several years in a manner consistent with the character and desired experience of most residents, renters, and other visitors, and has caused no harm to our community. We are concerned that recent restrictions imposed by the town create unnecessary limitations on the ability for the Tides to operate as they have for years, hurting their business, reducing income for employees, and limiting access and experiences that are enjoyed by many customers, members of the community. We understand that today's vote is for a revised liquor license. And so we know that's what you're voting on, but we are going to appeal to you that after you take that vote, that the select board in the town reconsider the restrictions that have been put on the Tide, because we think they're to the detriment of the community. So we're specifically requesting first that we reinstate the full liquor license for the Tides and to allow the Tides to operate their food and beverage service in a manner that's consistent with the way they've operated over the past several years, allowing service of food and beverage on the Tides front lawn area, including the use of dining tables that have been in place for several years, allowing to-go food service, and allowing the return of full seating capacity that's been in place in 2024 and many prior years. I have additional comments, but I want to first say, while there are 503 signatures, I'd ask anyone who's here in support of the tides, who signed the petition or wants to acknowledge support of the tides, please raise your hand. So before I make any more comments, I want to defer to, is there anyone else in the public who wanted to make comments?
So this is your meeting.
I've got a few more.
We do have time for one more comment, so please
Maureen
come.
Devlin, 882 Kings Highway. And Rob, I just wanted to say what everyone already said. Thank you. Well said, and we really appreciate your gathering this show of support. It means a lot to our community. And we're distressed that you all would use your discretion to change the liquor license as you have.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I would like to mention that there was a notice of violation that was drawn up that has to do with the nonconforming use, an expansion of commercial activity. So that is currently in place. There are some very important discussions going on between the Tides and the town. We've had 2 face-to-face meetings with our legal representation on both sides. The town is looking for a solution to this that will return much of what we know and love about the Tides. I grew up on the beach as well. But also to come into conformance with the non-conforming use. And this needs to be worked out. And it's a process, folks. You are seeing it halfway through the process. So I hope you'll give us a little more time and have a little more faith, I would just say personally, in what we are trying to do for this town.
I appreciate that, but I think the timing of this actually is questionable. And so I want to read a few more thoughts. I want to appeal to your sense of community, sense of business, and practical sense. What we have going on right now is a lose, lose, lose. The restriction posed on the Tides are causing financial losses for employees, a loss of services for community and our visitor, and a loss of business, losses for a business that's a good neighbor. We should be searching for win-win-wins. Let's start with the appeal to the sense of community. Over the past 6 to 8 weeks, the narrative appeared to be that the community was opposed to the Tides. I hope the 503 signatures and the supporters in this room help to demonstrate the opposite is true. The Tides is a jewel in our community, as was expressed in the petition. I submit that the majority of the community wants to see the Tides operate as a hub for our community for generations, as it has. Part of being a community and part of our responsibility is looking out for employees. If these restrictions that are in place are allowed to continue, the employees will earn significantly less than they anticipated when they chose to work at the Tides. Employees range from people supporting families to young adults earning money for their college educations. With little notice, they look to make less money than planned. It's hard enough to find and motivate seasonal employees, and the actions of the town have made it increasingly difficult for the Tides. Let's consider running a business. Ms. Nelson, who's the general manager of the KRC Properties, has worked really hard, done a great job, got promoted to run this just recently. That's something we should applaud. Like many other businesses in town, April and May are the peak efforts to open up for the season. The Tides and KRC has been dealt this very difficult challenge at the worst time. This didn't come at the end of last season or during the winter months. Rather, it came just as they were at the most complex time of year, prepping and opening for the season. Instead of giving this business fair warning and time to prepare for changes, the town has chosen now to leverage the business and restrict their ability to be successful. This is a time when the economy is uncertain. This is a time when our Canadian neighbors are reducing their visits to town. It's extremely difficult to juggle all that's needed to run a business successfully, and we live in a time with so much uncertainty that makes it even harder. The town did not present these code violations for many years, and in fact approved liquor licenses annually without debate. Choosing this moment to enforce alleged violations at this time of year simply is unfair, particularly given some of the alleged violations go back a decade or more. So the town has the ability to sit on these alleged violations, yet expects the Tides to comply immediately. Does that seem reasonable for any business? Why not let the tides operate as they have for years and discuss reasonable compromises that are good for the community, the business, and the town ahead of next season? Apparently, there's no statute of limitations on town codes, but at least there could be a reasonable lead time to address this and more thoughtful time of year to do so. From a practical sense, you have an obligation to support businesses, residents, and visitors alike. Imagine the guests of the tides who booked a vacation only to find there are significant new limitations and restrictions imposed by the town. As guests of the tides, I could go to the general store or any other business in town and pick up lunch and bring it to the beach. However, I can't walk across the street into the inn and pick up a sandwich to take to the beach. The tides is going to have to try to figure out if someone who grabs a croissant from their buffet is actually taking it out to the beach or the lawn. Does that seem reasonable? Imagine the couple who lives in town who signed this petition, who wanted to lock in a wedding at the tides for the fall and can't due to the uncertainty of a liquor license or the inability to serve appetizers on the front lawn, as has been the case for years. Imagine the community members who love to gather with friends and family with their dogs and grandbabies at the table in the front lawn who can't. Imagine the community members who will walk into the tides in the peak of season and not be able to get a seat at a community table. Consider the unintended consequences, such as limited capacity to our neighborhood restaurant and bar, forcing locals to drive when they might have a cocktail. The limitation of to-go food on the beach will force more people into the restaurant, further limiting capacity and access for neighborhood residents. What harm has the tide done? They've been a successful, popular business. Perhaps their chairs and umbrella make it look too much like a beach club. Perhaps at times guests on a public beach are pulling those chairs forward into the restricted area. But it is a public beach and guests, I imagine, have a right to do so. What good has the tides done? They've been a central hub for the community, for community gatherings, and they support the character of the people of Goose Rocks. They've been a place for families to gather and celebrate milestones and make memories that's in keeping with the notion of a family-oriented beach. They renovated a classic and consistent with the character of Goose Rocks. They donated to the Audubon Society to help protect the plovers. They volunteered as a part of the beach cleanup and cleaned up about half of a 3-mile stretch of beach. They housed the beach wheelchair. They offer their restrooms for public use, and there are no other restrooms that are available near that area. They contribute to the town's economy, including bringing visitors to many other local businesses, and they employ many members of the community. So while they are alleged to be non-conforming, they have not had the right to process, and they have not had the opportunity to address this at a different time of year that does not put their business in severe harm. So we would ask, as you do your continued negotiations, that you really consider the voice of the community and also consider whether or not every single ordinance is always enforced to the letter of the law and whether or not there's actually some common sense that is applied, which I know happens. I can't imagine that every single liquor license that was approved without discussion is in the case where a restaurant is abiding by every single ordinance to the letter of the law. I know that one...
Rob, we do have 3 minutes, so keep going.
Okay. There were I believe seven violations alleged, and I think that the decks were stacked very purposely to leverage the tides, and I think that some of those were, quite frankly, trivial. So as an example, saying that the resort fee that's charged, which is very commonly charged by every hotel in a tourist area for amenities, for use of bikes, for use of internet, to say that and a person being able to borrow a kayak is commerce on the beach feels like a misapplication, and it feels trivial. To say there isn't enough parking for the capacity of the restaurant. There are 173 public spots. The restaurant happens to be in a neighborhood where the vast majority of residents are able to walk to the restaurant. So I just think I think the deck was stacked and the leverage was made at a time of year that really is not fair to a business or fair to the community.
Thank you, Rob, I appreciate
Thank you.
it. Mr. Cohen. I will only comment, Rob, if this were the first year we were speaking to the tides, I would be a little more sympathetic. All righty. So we have, let's see, number 9 we're on. I'll take one more comment, but it's 3 minutes, folks. Thank you. Hearing none. Anyone on?
No hands raised.
All righty, so can I have a motion, please, to approve the Tides Beach Club liquor license?
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor? 5-0. All righty. No,
I would just like to say a public statement.
3 minutes.
Oh, it won't be that long. Time me, it should be about a minute and a half.
It's okay, you
extra.
had just,
Emily Nelson from the Kennebunkport Resort Collection. I'd just like to thank you all, the Select Board, for approving the liquor license this evening. I appreciate it. Obviously, we've been in several talks, and I appreciate the approval. I also appreciate the community members and the support here tonight. I just would kind of like to state for public record that we would like to note that the Tide submitted this revised renewal liquor application at the town's request and maintains the position that our business has the right to serve both liquor and food on the front lawn of the Tides, as it has been done for at least 14 years during current management and previously under prior ownership by Marie going back to 1972. This adjustment has been made in good faith during overall discussions with the town of Kennebunkport and was not taken lightly, considering our implications for our business, employees, and local community. We will continue to advocate for all stakeholders involved and hope to reach an agreeable resolution for all parties.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, number 10. We have a Shellfish Committee report. Everett?
Everett, it was not able to make it tonight.
That's too bad, because that really is one of my favorite pieces, what he does. So we will pass. Thank you. We have a great agenda, folks. Are you really, thank you. Thank you. Number 11. So this is a request from the Portside Rotary to sell ducks at Dock Square parking lot and to rename Dock Square to Duck Square on August the 23rd. And Bob, is Bob with us?
I am here.
Thank you, Bob.
I'm kind of lightening the load here a little bit now.
Yeah.
We're talking about liquid, though. So, actually, we're the Kennebunkport Rotary. We changed the name a couple of years
Sorry.
ago. No problem, Lori. But I am the co-chair of the Riverfest, which is our annual fundraiser that we do every year. So I have some props. I brought props. I won't take a lot of your time. But this is, and actually, this is autographed by George Bush, 41.
Wow.
So we've been around for a long time. And this is really what we're talking about, selling these little puppies here, these little ducks. So that's our biggest fundraiser that we do. We give a lot of money back to the community, as you all know. So what I'm asking for is one kind of a thing we haven't done for a few years, but ask you folks if you would change the name on August 23rd to Duck Square during that day. We've done it in the past. I haven't been chair for a few years, so I haven't been.
Because the race goes right under the river, right?
It
So
does.
the ducks go.
Well, hopefully the ducks don't go under the bridge. That's
Oh.
our goal. We have the,
Good luck with that.
Yeah.
tell me, Al. I've lived through a lot of these over the years. Yeah, so that's where we do it. We do it on the 23rd of August. It's all depending on the tides. When the tides pull it out, we can't have a too strong of a tide and all that kind of stuff. But so we're looking to change the name just for that one day. And the other thing is asking if we could sell ducks a couple weekends by the restrooms in the Dock Square parking lot. Being a parking lot attendant this summer, I get to see how busy that area is, and I think it's out of the way. It won't be in anybody's way. You know, I was talking to our audio-visual Dave last night, actually, and I can probably keep people from getting hit by the gate.
So that would be 2 weekends, you're thinking?
The actual race, we usually sell in Chief's spot over at the, were you with Chief last year, Dr. Chris? I think, no. Anyway, so we usually use the police spot just for a few hours that day. But actually selling ducks, we're talking about doing maybe a couple weekends.
So 2 weekends?
Yes,
Yeah, it'd be good just to know what the number is, so we can actually have that in the motion.
yeah.
So for 2, would you like 3, or is 2 gonna do you?
John, you can give me as many as you got.
Well, let's say no more than 3. Can we
Okay.
say that? Up
Yeah.
to, up to 3
And I
different
can give
weekends.
you, I'll give Lori and give you the dates that we pick, and you
Can
can mix
you-
them if you want, or whatever.
Hours of time?
Just a couple hours, 2 or 3 hours. It'll probably be, right around lunchtime, when it gets busier over there.
Perfect.
bathrooms.
Perfect.
We'll be out of the way. We won't cause anybody any problems. And if we do, just tell us
So
not to
am
come
I.
back.
And will this be, is this replacing other places that you sold them, or is this?
No,
gonna be an
well,
addition?
it'll augment them. I mean, as, to your point, I think you probably have seen us sell them around. We-
Bradbury's
front of
was
the
always a good.
Bradbury's
Cape,
is our
yeah.
primary
Yeah.
place,
So it's a good
Cape Porpoise Kitchen, not HB, it's Cape Port
Yep.
Provisions now.
Provision.
Yeah,
Some of the places, but we would like to be able to sell them there. And actually, one of the days we're looking for is 4th of July.
Okay.
ooh, would that, you have a concern with that?
No,
Great, great. The boss says it's okay, so that's good. 4th of July, all righty.
So I'll make a motion to approve the request to rename Dock Square to Duck Square on August 23rd. And approve to use an area near the restroom to sell ducks up to 3 weekends for 2 to 3 hours apiece.
Second,
I have a first and second, any discussion?
I think it's a great idea.
It's
Cool,
a
so do
great,
I.
it's a great community building thing.
I think it's just ducky.
Duck.
Yeah, and if everybody,
Is that the first time I heard that, John?
no, I bet not. All in favor? Great, 5-0.
Thanks.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Bob, Rich, great.
You want to see the duck?
I just want the winning duck.
Yeah,
Well, a local won this past year, which is not always.
excellent, excellent. Okay, item number 12. This is an update on the Ocean Avenue Wambi Beach and the pier head of the harbor work that's being done by Woodard and Kern. We have with us the lead engineer, Caitlin Schur, as well. Is Kevin, I didn't see Kevin with you, so Kevin's not here.
Kevin's not here tonight.
That's all right. And of course, Barry Chef, who's chief in place. So, what do you want, you're going to have slides.
Yep, yeah, so we have a brief presentation that we'll run through. And Dave, I'll just say next slide. Next slide. So our agenda for the presentation tonight, so we're going to give an update on 2 projects that we've been working on. The first is Pier Road, head of the harbor, so we'll give a status update, provide an update from the neighborhood meeting that we had earlier this week, walk through the alternatives analysis that we've been looking at, and then talk next steps. Similarly, for Ocean Avenue reconstruction, we'll give an update, talk about a meeting that we had with the police, fire chief, and abutters regarding parking, hopefully get a parking decision, and then talk next steps. Next slide. So the first project, Pier Road, head of the harbor. So we were in front of you last September talking about this project. So the goal of this project is to elevate a section of Pier Road at the head of Cape Porpoise Harbor to improve resilience to flooding. Since we last saw you, we've evaluated 7 alternatives, and we had presented several of those alternatives to you previously, and we've looked at some additional alternatives since our last meeting, and I'll walk through those this evening. And we had a neighborhood meeting just 2 nights ago at Atlantic Hall, where we invited residents to come and hear more about the alternatives and provide feedback. So at that meeting, the town noticed residents ahead of the meeting, so let them know we were inviting folks to come and hear about the project. And we presented the alternatives, which I'll walk through some of the same slides that I gave a presentation on Tuesday, I'll share with you tonight. And after walking through the presentation, we split up into smaller groups at tables and had kind of smaller, more intimate discussions to get feedback from the residents. We had some questions that were handed out where we were looking for specific feedback on concerns, what were people hoping for, and then at the end of the meeting, we kind of stood up and shared the summary of what we had heard from the different tables. So this is just I guess you call this a Wordle or a word cloud. So these are some of the themes that we heard from the folks that attended the neighborhood meeting. I think there were 21 people that attended, so it was a good turnout. We had a site walk last August, so similarly where we invited folks from the neighborhood to come out, and that was more of just an initial project meeting where we heard from folks, and I think there were 41 people at that meeting. So not as many people at this last meeting, but still a good turnout, and some of the same folks that had been at that initial meeting. So some of the feedback that we heard is that folks are concerned about flooding, obviously, impacts to private properties, emergency access. There was discussion about amphibious vehicles in lieu of some of the more permanent solutions that we have been looking at. And cost, views, I think changing the character of the neighborhood is something that a lot of folks, were concerned about. And what is this going to look like? And, just to remind you all, right now we're in the preliminary design stage, right? So we've been hired by the town to do this preliminary design effort and evaluate different alternatives. And the goal at the end of this effort is to produce a preliminary design report that will summarize what we looked at and then the recommended alternative. So these are the 7 alternatives that we looked at. And I have a slide for each of these. And for each of the alternatives, we looked at what is the level of resilience that this option provides, what are the pros and what are the cons. And then at the end of that, we created a matrix where we ranked each alternative based on several criteria. And, what is the level of resilience, what is cost, and on a sliding scale, and used that analysis to figure out which to, the ranking of the several alternatives. So I wanted to mention that the first 3 alternatives you see here in parentheses that we say raise road to elevation 15. And that's important because essentially in addition to doing the first piece, so in addition to doing the breakwater, in addition to doing the wall, in addition to doing the levee, you would also have to raise the road to elevation 15 for those first 3 alternatives. And I can talk a little bit more about why, but I just wanted to mention that now. And then for alternative 5, which is elevating the roadway, we looked at 3 different elevations, and those are what we had presented to you previously.
So is that approximately 4 feet from what it is today?
So the low point on the road is around elevation 12, and I should also say that we're talking in mean lower low water, which is the tide elevation, so that would be about 3 feet at the low point. So that's not, consistently everywhere, but at the low point it would be 3 feet.
That's a lot.
But I would like to know, if you get to the actual head of the harbor, where you're coming towards town a bit, you're climbing up, what's the elevation there? It's more like 13 and a half.
Yeah, it wouldn't be, the catch basin at the corner, so like if you're looking at this image, there's a catch basin kind of right at the corner before you turn to the head of the harbor. That's the low point, and it's hard to tell from this picture, but you're climbing up this way and then, like you said, the other way. So it wouldn't be 3 feet at the head of the harbor.
Right.
I don't know.
It's just important for folks to conceptualize it.
Sure.
Really, it's right there at Fisher's Lane where it's dropped. That's the very lowest.
That's right.
And of course, that affects all those folks on the right as you're going out.
Yep.
But as you come near the head, it's probably closer to 13 feet. Yeah. Okay.
So I'll walk through each in a little bit more detail. So the first alternative that we looked at was constructing a breakwater out in the harbor. You can see use my little thingy if this is gonna work for me. So this photo here is an example of a breakwater in Rockland, Maine. I'm sure many of you have seen these. This in the aerial image here, this in orange is what that may look like from an aerial perspective looking down. So this would provide resilience against Sampson's Cove base flood elevation of 15. And really building the breakwater out in the harbor, what the positive of that is it's providing offshore wave protection. So it's really not providing much more protection beyond that. Yeah. So you're not getting protection more than the current base flood elevation. It doesn't protect against storm surge. And, maybe most importantly about this option, there's going to be really significant impacts to natural resources as you're building something in the harbor. And so that would have substantial permitting obstacles. And I know last time when we talked about this, we heard, well, just because it's hard to permit, that's not a reason not to do it. And that's certainly true. And what we mean by permit obstacles is that it may not be able to be permitted. And the reason is that for every one of these, you would have to do an alternatives analysis where you would have to show that there's not another viable alternative that would be less impactful, which would be really hard to prove for this alternative and for some of the subsequent alternatives. So I just wanted to mention that's what we mean when we're talking about permitting obstacles, is that it would be very challenging to say this is the best option. So the second alternative that we looked at would be constructing a wall. So again, another example here. This is an example of a seawall in Situate, Mass. And the elevations that I've noted here are what we would be proposing. So the road, again, would be raised to elevation 15, and then the top of the wall would be at elevation 17. And down in the aerial image here, you can see in red, this is what the alignment of the wall may look like. So it would be along the head of the harbor, and then it would come out behind these properties and tie back in. So this would, go ahead.
No.
Okay. This would provide a significant increase in the level of resilience compared to existing conditions, because you'd be bringing the wall up to elevation 17, which is the base flood elevation in this area. It would provide protection for these several properties here, just because the wall would be behind them. So essentially, this would be a very tall, freestanding wall. The downsides to this option is obviously this limits limits access to the water from these private properties. It's going to create a loss of view at the head of the harbor here. Again, similar to alternative one, there would be really significant impacts to natural resources as you would be building this wall in the harbor. And because you would be providing protection for these private properties, there would be some element of private funding that would be needed.
Is this a wall? How would those properties, if they had a boat, get out into the harbor? Is there going to be a
They
break in the
wouldn't.
wall? So basically,
They're landlocked. them.
they're landlocked and the water wouldn't be in there anymore?
That's right.
It's not a good option.
So, and the wall goes all the way around to the outside of those properties because?
Yeah, because you need to get to that. In order to provide the level of resilience to elevation 17, you need to protect the road up until it's reaching that elevation 17. So where you're tying back in here, you'd have to build to 17 to get that level of resilience.
But Sampson's is at 15, so if you
Right.
have a flood surge at 16, you're going to have a foot of water on the road.
Yes.
Sampson's?
So what's good is the wall.
Say that again.
Well, Sampson's Cove from the back.
Back, yeah.
Once you get above 15 feet above sea level, the water's going to run up to the road. If you go to 16 feet, you're going to have a foot of water on the road. The wall will still be sticking up a foot, but I don't see where that really gives us much.
Well, it provides you protection against the harbor side, right? The
But
wall.
chain's only as good as the links, right? I mean,
Yeah, I mean, if the elevation of water is 16 over here, then the road is going to be a foot underwater.
okay. that's
We
all
don't have hardly any wave action in that cove.
Yeah.
Head of the cove.
Yeah.
We don't,
Head of the harbor.
head of the harbor, excuse me.
You could argue the surge would be higher there from a southwest wind, so the surge could be higher than it would be in Sampson's Cove, so that's probably true, but still.
Yeah, I mean,
But
and
permitting this is gonna be impossible, right? Really?
it may be, yes.
Yeah.
Do you have to get consent from the private landowners?
That's a good question.
Yeah.
Yes, you would.
Okay.
Pretty big impacts to those private property owners.
Yeah.
So the third alternative that we looked at would be constructing a levee, which is essentially a earthen berm that would be built up. You can see an example of a levee. I'm sure many of you have heard about levees, which they have in Louisiana. So this is showing, a levee keeping keeps high water on the Mississippi River from flooding. This is in Gretna, Louisiana. So down on the bottom in this aerial image here, you see this green L shape. That is what the levee would have to look like in order to provide protection here. So it would be very wide. It would essentially go across the entire harbor, and it would just be this tall earthen berm. And what that would do would be, if you build it to elevation 17, you are protecting to that base flood elevation. And again, in this option, you would also be raising the road to elevation 15. So I'm going to keep repeating that, but that's true for the first three options. So I just want folks to remember that, because it's sort of two projects in essence, where you're raising the road and then you're also building this berm. So while you would get an increase in level of resilience, and again, you would be providing some protection for these private properties, this may have the most significant impacts to natural resources. Again, very substantial permitting obstacles. Obviously, you would be limiting water access for these private properties. The views would be very obscured from the head of the harbor. This would be a really challenging one to move forward with.
And once again, the water between the levee and Pier Road would just disappear?
Stagnant pool.
Stagnant pool, okay. All right. Next.
You can't drive your Chevy to the
Chevy
levee.
can't drive your Chevy to the
Chevy
levee
can't
anymore?
drive to the levee. No.
And I should say too that what we were tasked with was evaluating different alternatives, right? So that's what we've been doing. So next slide. So alternative 4 would be deploying temporary aqua fence barriers. You can see an example of what these look like. This is Tampa General Hospital. These barriers, they're temporary, so there's something that the town staff would have to transport. They'd have to be stored somewhere, and they would have to be deployed ahead of a storm in order to be successful. So the benefit of these is that, it's not a permanent impact to private properties. It would be, limited construction, so construction dollars would be a lot less than the other alternatives. However, the success is very sensitive to the timing. You would have to know, okay, there's this big storm coming. You'd have to coordinate with town staff. We talked to the vendor, and they told us that it would take 8 hours of 8 people to install these along the road here. And it's hard to see on this slide, but they're in blue, so it would be on each side of the road. They would be blocking people's driveways, because it needs to be a continuous surface to block the water. So during the time that these were deployed, anyone with a driveway here would not be able to leave their home. And because they would take up a good chunk of the road, there would only be one-way traffic through this area, so you need an alternating signal. And it's just the labor required to deploy these is really significant. And then you also think about taking them down. Like, once the storm is over, you have to then come take them away. Think about transporting them, putting them on trucks, getting them, back to wherever they're being stored at the town. And so, if it's a big storm, you have to assume that town staff are busy doing many other things, and it may take some time for them to be removed.
How many trucks does it take
Yeah.
to transport all of those pieces of fence? Roughly,
A lot.
does the town have that many trucks? Are there that many trucks in York County? Are there that many trucks in Maine?
It's not.
Just as an order of magnitude, that seems
Sure.
like a lot of trucks. 8 hours maybe to unload them 8 times 8 or whatever it was. But
Yep.
trucking them is a whole other
Yes.
ball of wax, and it's a narrow road.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Got to build a building to store them.
Next slide. So now we're into the alternative 5, where, again, we looked at 3 different elevations of raising the roadway, and these are what we had presented to you previously. We looked at elevations 15, 17, and 18 and a half, and those elevations all have significance that I'll talk about. So this alternative 5A would be just elevating the roadway to elevation 15. And what that does is that provides a level of resilience against the Sampson's Cove base flood elevation of 15. which is, as many of you know, it's the Sampson's Cove is behind here, and that has a base flood elevation of 15, while the project area and the harbor have a base flood elevation of 17. So the protection at elevation 15, while it gets you above Sampson's Cove, it's less than the base flood elevation. The positives of this option are that there's minimal impacts to natural resources. You're rebuilding the wall at the head of the harbor, but you're not constructing something new in the harbor like some of those other options. Minimal impacts to private properties. Driveway access would be unimpeded. It would be permittable, and relative to the other options, it would have a lower construction cost.
How do you tie it's going up about 2 feet, it looks like, to the green mark, right?
Yep.
So how does that person's driveway and yard tie into the 2 feet? I mean, you have to do the whole yard and grade it and slope it to their house, or how does that work?
Not the whole yard. So you would need to do a little bit of regrading of the driveway to get up to, if you're picturing the road being here,
The road's gonna be at the green tape, right?
Yes, in this option, yes. So there would be, you'd have the road, and then you'd probably go 3 to 1 on the side. So you just have to get down to tie in. So it wouldn't be like you're regrading the entire front yard, right? It just would be that small section. I think we looked at what the limits of grading would be for this option, and it was minimal impacts to private properties, because it sounds like a lot, but it's not raising it that much. I'm just looking at another graphic that we had.
3 to 1 means 3 feet linear to every 1 foot of elevation, right?
So you're 6 feet in.
So that's 6 feet.
Yeah.
That's just, I'm not good at math.
Sure. Yeah.
So 13, so this is so what is the biggest impact to somebody? Is it 2 feet? Is it 3 feet to a resident along this red line to their driveway, to
Depends
their
on how much
property?
throw you have, right?
No, not in terms of how, I'm
Oh.
saying the elevation difference, because there's elevation points differences around this whole red line, right? So,
Yeah, the elevation varies everywhere, so it's hard to.
so for example, we're talking this one in the picture specifically, it's a 2 foot, so it would be a 6 foot impact to their front lawn. But I didn't know if we go to elevation 15, and if somebody else is very low, then all of a sudden it's a 10 or 12 foot impact to their front.
Well, that max was 3, right?
Yeah, the max
is
is 3, because the low point is elevation 12. So
Okay,
that
so
would be
max
the
is
worst.
3.
And that's at the catch basin that's, over on the other side of the road here. Sorry, it's over on this side of the road.
3 feet, then that's 9 feet. 3 feet on a 3 to 1 slope, is 9 feet of linear feet horizontally, right? Again,
Joe, could you need to use your
Yeah,
mic?
you gotta get
Because
into
we're
the
on,
mic.
for the Zoom.
So
Yeah, it's
3
9.
feet from
It's
that
9.
low point, on a
9.
3 to 1 slope means that the area from where the road ends and you've raised it that 3 feet, it's going to be a 9-foot slope
3 to 1,
on the homeowner's
360.
front lawn and driveway.
Is that fair? Remind me what this 3 to 1 is? Is that,
You have to,
that's for
You gotta
a
go
proper,
down.
no, I got that, but why are those numbers? That's for drainage, or is it for a car being able to get down a driveway? What
No.
are those numbers?
Yeah, so 3 to 1 would be what you would do in a landscaped area. For the driveways, you would want to stay under 10%, say, for driveway access.
Really?
So 3 to 1 that's the max that you can do without doing riprap or something like that. So you could still mow 3 to 1.
Got it.
But if you go to 2 to 1, then you're looking at some kind of more reinforcement on the slope. But
And then
3 to
what-
1, you can loam and
Yeah,
seed.
and then what's the comment for the driveway? What was the 10%?
10 to 1, is that what you're saying?
No, 10. Well, yeah, 10%.
So 10 to 1.
I'm saying that
Yeah.
Yeah, that's-
10% grade.
grade, 10% slope on, that's what we would try to keep driveways to.
Yeah, we're gonna have a real rough time on the seaside of those roads. If you go up beyond 15 feet.
When you did it originally, months and months ago, we talked about, not a sequel, the walls that they would build, retaining walls.
Retaining.
Yeah.
So would that still be factored into some of these properties?
On this option, there wouldn't need to be
Then it would
retaining
need to
walls.
Not at
be
15, but
okay.
it's
It was
coming
something
up.
higher.
Yeah, it's, yes, there will be.
Yeah.
More questions on that one? John, you good?
No, it's good.
Okay. So elevation 17, yeah, and I forgot to point this
So
out.
I got a quick one. So, I'm sorry. So I don't know where you guys are in the studying of each one of these, so the question might not be relevant now, but have you looked at each individual driveways for like elevation 15 and studied in terms of, are there properties that wouldn't even be able to make the cut at 15 or 17 or
I think you had that,
elevation?
didn't you?
Yes, we have.
Oh, you do? Okay.
Mhm.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, and so for elevation 15, there would be no impact to, all driveways would still be accessible. When you get, and similar with elevation 17, so let's talk about elevation 17, which is the base flood elevation. So that's this pink ribbon on this utility pole here. So this obviously is more resilient than the previous option. It gets you to that elevation 17, which is the significant base flood elevation. And for reference, the storm event from, I have this on another slide here.
It's 14 and a half.
It was thank you, 14. So the January 13th, 2024 storm event that we all remember, the Portland tide gauge was 14 and a half feet, just for reference there. So the pros of this option, it's a significant increase in level of resilience. Again, there's minimal impacts to resource areas. It's just reconstructing the head of the harbor wall here. Would be permittable, moderate construction cost. The cons are that you do start seeing some more grading impacts to private properties. The driveways get steeper, they're still accessible, but steeper than what's existing. And you may start to see some view impacts just because the road is, from private properties, because the road is gonna be, say 5 feet higher at that low point, which is the worst case, right? So,
I'm 5 feet. That's me.
But probably closer to 3 feet at the head of the harbor, but still 3 feet, 3.5 feet.
mhm.
And that doesn't, the 14-foot tide, that wasn't storm surge.
Oh, it was.
It
It
was,
was, that is.
yeah, that was the
Right, the-
big storm. That
Our
was the
highest astronomical is about 11.7.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and just, I guess, I have this elevation slide that's at the end. I don't think we need to flip to it now, but so the highest annual tide elevation is about 11.8, and that's the rim invert of the existing catch basin there at the corner. Next slide. So then lastly, 5C was looking at elevating the roadway to elevation 18 and a half. You might be wondering why 18 and a half, and that's because that's elevation 17, which is the base flood elevation plus 1.5 feet of sea level rise, which is what the Maine Climate Council is recommending. The state commits to building to, and that's 1.5 feet of sea level rise by the year 2050. So this would achieve, obviously, the highest level of resilience. It's significant increase in the road elevation. It would be similar to the others, be permittable, have minimal impacts to natural resources. The cons to this option are that you start to see more significant impacts to private properties. So some driveways, and particularly the driveways that are on the harbor side, may become inaccessible because there's just not enough room to tie those driveways in. They would become too steep to be accessible. And again, you might start to see view impacts from private properties.
I have a question.
Sure.
So say if we started out at 15 and it worked fine for 10 or 15 years, there was no problems, could we, and then all of a sudden, we see something that needs to be addressed to raise the wall? Can you raise the wall? Do you have to tear the wall down and put another wall up?
The road.
Can you raise
You mean the
the,
road.
add to the
Well, this is
wall?
just the
You
road.
mean the road, you mean the road.
You mean the road.
Can you raise
Right,
the
the
road?
road.
Yeah, the road.
Sorry, the
Yeah,
road.
yeah.
Yeah, there's nothing that would preclude you from doing that in the future.
In fact, you would design it so it could, right?
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
If we
and,
did this, yeah.
Yeah,
And what is
again,
on the other side of the road? Is it just the road, or do we have, is it the road, or is there something on the other side, on the harbor side?
There would be, so you'd either have a slope or there would be a retaining wall.
And there is a
Are you-
wall
Are you
there
talking
now.
about on the other side of the houses, like a wall in the?
No, I'm saying like here.
At the head of the harbor.
Yeah, at the head of the harbor. So here.
Be like it is today.
Wall here to elevation 15, is there something here that's higher than that?
Yeah, so the wall along head of the harbor would be raised as well.
She's saying, though, would it be higher than the road if we did it to elevation 15?
No, I don't think so.
And then would we, so do we have the capability, so I don't know how this works with the storm surge, so if we did more riprap out into the harbor, does that help us at all? Does that help slow the momentum of the surge coming in? Does it help dissipate it? I don't understand, I don't know the water and the storm surge. I don't know what happens there. I don't know if, is that,
I think the surge is just pretty much a steady, at that point, because again, as Al was saying, there isn't a whole bunch of fetch to catch. You don't get big waves coming in. You'll get some, but it won't be huge. I don't know that would really help to have riprap out, but
no,
I'm
okay.
sorry, I don't-
And
I mean,
what-
it might help protect the wall, but it's not gonna,
Okay, it's not gonna
like,
throw energy
reduce
back and
the
dissipate the
level of the water, no,
Okay.
no.
And then what about dredging? Does dredging do anything in this situation? Does that help us gain some time or?
Yeah,
no?
so it really doesn't, and this question came up the other night at the neighborhood meeting, and my colleague Kevin Trainer, who's not here tonight, had a very eloquent answer that I will try to replicate, but it really doesn't, and the reason is because the level of the ocean is what it is, right? Like, you're not gonna change the level of the ocean, so you can make the harbor deeper, but that's not gonna make the elevation of the water go down. It's kind of
It
a,
would just flood in. It would just keep going. It'd just be
yeah, it
deeper.
just, there just would be more, it just would be deeper.
You
Just
wouldn't-
allows
it wouldn't
more water
sag
to
down,
pour
right?
in.
You can't sag the water down. Water's always
Right.
gonna come to the
in
level.
a straight line.
Are you going to the podium, sir?
I'm sorry. Josh?
Right, yes.
If they had a chance, but, it's just,
So it's a wave thing,
You
is
have to
that's
dredge
what
a
Eric
lot.
said?
Yeah.
It helps wave action,
yeah.
Yeah, and it,
maybe.
The depth of the water.
So
Varies-
Eric, are
varies
you
not.
gonna go to the podium so people can hear you?
That was,
Yeah, just what was mentioned by Kevin is that the deeper the water, the higher the amplitude of the wave, so the wave would actually be higher, would actually worsen the wave height elevation.
oh,
So-
okay.
Yeah.
But I don't think we have that
No,
problem.
I don't think we do either, but it's
No.
okay. But it would
No.
if it were in open water, yes.
Yeah, I just
yes.
didn't know if it
Yeah,
helped
in
dissipate
open
some
water,
water.
it would, yeah. Yeah. That's way too
Good.
high.
well, let's go to the next slide. So this is our matrix where we compared the different alternatives. So you can see in the columns are the alternatives. So you have alternative 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, A, B, and C, and then the 5 criteria that we looked at. So the first being the resilience benefit that alternative provides, capital costs, and this is more of like order of magnitude capital costs, and all of these are evaluated on a sliding scale of 1 to 5, with 1 being the worst, which is why they're in red here, and then 5 being the best. So we haven't done detailed cost estimates for all of these alternatives at this point in time, just sort of order of magnitude. And then O&M costs, so operation and maintenance costs, so what costs would the town have to incur to maintain that alternative, and then private property impacts, and then the likelihood of it being able to be permitted. And again, I'll just remind you that the first, I have a little asterisk here on the first 3, 1, 2, and 3, that those include raising the roadway to elevation 15. So I'm not going to go through every single ranking here, but what you can see from this table is that the results of our analysis showed that the highest ranking alternative was 5B, which would be elevating the roadway to 17, and number 2 would be going to elevation 15. And then you can see the rankings here. We highlighted this thing is not cooperating with me, but we highlighted 1 and 2 as the top 2, and then you can see the rankings at the top 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
And I would just say that, those rankings came out very close. But if you look at the individual pieces to the ranking, so private property impact, on ranking 2, or elevation 15, it actually impacts private property less, whereas elevation 17 impacts it slightly more. So you can see there are some choices. However, the resilience benefit is lower on 15 than 17. So it depends on what the priorities are as well.
Yeah, yeah.
Wow.
Any, keep going, next slide.
From a cost standpoint, I would think most of the significant costs would be the same. You've got some extra fill to go to 17, but.
Yeah, I mean, and when you think about, like I've said, I keep saying this, but alternatives 1, 2, and 3, I mean, you're doing the elevating the road, and then you're also doing this other thing, right? So the cost for those first
Not the 1, 2,
three.
3. I'm talking between 15 and 17.
Oh, yeah, there would be a moderate increase.
But it's just moderate. Now, there would still be there'd still be a fence though, right? Thinking of the visual for folks that live there on the other side. You know, they're up 15 from what might be about 13. So maybe there's a 2 foot, 2.5, let's say. And that would just raise everything, right? So there'd be a fence
Yep.
again. But basically, they could just look out and put 2.5 feet higher and say, that's what my view would be at 15 feet. Would that be a fair assessment?
Yes.
And they would be allowed to put the fence up. Remember at Wamby, that.
I guess I thought you were talking about like this.
Oh, that was a
this.
different
You're talking
wall.
about this fence, right?
Yeah, I think that fence was different than Wamby.
Okay.
Yeah, Wamby had a whole fill thing that slid down. Yeah, which we're gonna hear about.
Yes. So here I'm just next steps. So our next steps would be advancing the preliminary design of the selected alternative, and per the grant that the town received, we need to deliver a basis of design report that includes drawings and a cost estimate for the selected alternative. So in the report, we'll talk about the alternatives that were evaluated, but ultimately we need to advance one of the alternatives. So based on the analysis that we did, raising the road to elevation 15 and 17 seems to be the most appropriate recommendation. But we, looking for the board's feedback on how to proceed.
Can you design it so that once we're at 15, it would be relatively affordable to go to 17? I mean, what, is it it's not a total rebuild. You wouldn't have to do the infrastructure
I mean, if you
again.
look at the Ocean
Right?
Avenue seawall we did along by the River Club, I mean, that was built with the intention to eventually elevate it. So it was built with a retaining wall that is like a Lego block formation. So yeah, we absolutely can do these in incremental steps.
Mm-hmm.
That makes a lot of sense.
Doesn't that make it makes a lot of sense to me.
Is there an ability to go to 16?
You can go to whatever elevation you want.
You get a little bit more.
Split the baby. I
You get
like
a
that.
little bit more resiliency, but.
I like that.
Yeah, but you also have to think about the people that live there.
No, I know.
No, what I'm just
you
saying,
know?
Alan,
That's really important.
Oh, I agree.
I think that's where I'm struggling. I think the other projects we've done, have been sort of removed from private property.
Yeah.
And
This is a
while,
different story.
yeah, while we want to be resilient, I think where I struggle with this is the resiliency at the cost to a private residence. So that's where, and I think this came up a little bit when you guys first presented with us before. So I'm a little, I don't know. I was hoping that there was going to be some little magic out there, but you guys did a great job looking at all various things. So I understand now that there's no little magic, that it really truly comes back to the raising. I think, but that's where I personally have a problem, because we always say in resiliency, you make it resilience, or, there's the retreat. And so I think for me, that's where I'm struggling when I read it through first is, it's just, that's why my questions were coming the way they were, which is, okay, at what point does we now degrade somebody's property. And I think I saw that in
Yeah.
the word search, private
Sure.
property.
Yeah, I mean, that definitely came up at the neighborhood meeting, and I think, whatever decision is made by the town right now, it doesn't preclude changing it in the future, right? We need direction to proceed to finish the basis of design report. That doesn't mean that that's the final design, that that's what's gonna be built. We need direction just to finish kind of this initial effort. But I appreciate your concerns.
I wonder if there's some
We could
comments.
certainly eliminate some that they don't have to go in, right?
Say that again?
They can eliminate some options they don't need to follow.
Well, yeah, I think the idea is for
Is-
us to try to give them, if we're ready, a direction on how to proceed.
Is there a time limit for the bond or the grant that we got that you guys have to be done with?
Yes.
Yes, okay, so you need direction from us
And
now.
remember that we put this on pause for the
This is
Ocean
right.
Avenue, so we're a little
Behind.
behind schedule.
Okay.
I like
I
15.
think doing the least is the best in the beginning.
As long as we can build on it relatively effectively, and it sounds like it's going to be so designed, I would be comfortable with that.
So this is what I would suggest. We heard a lot of feedback at the meeting on Tuesday night, and people were very passionate about it, and people were very concerned about the impacts. And we knew that going in. These projects we're doing, they're becoming more complex. And when we go to the beach, they're gonna be more complex. And so people aren't at the point of raising their homes, but in the future, they could be, right, as things change. And so I think an incremental approach in this particular circumstance makes the most sense, much like we did with Ocean Avenue seawall, where we were impacting abutting properties, Sonny's Lobster Pound down there. And so, you do what you can now. And then also, I think that we could certainly finish the preliminary design report, but if the town were actually to proceed, I think that we would need to do some additional studies to understand, similar to what we did on the Causeway, where we did some views. So, imagining what it would look like from different people's houses. I think people need more information to get on board. But I think it also impacts people's private property the least. And that is a big issue that we saw when we went to 17 and definitely to 18 and a half feet. I just don't think the neighborhood is there yet.
And I can
I
understand
I would
that.
agree with that.
So it's a pleasure of the board. Shall
So
we move forward with 15?
Move forward with 15. I mean, it's the least, it's gonna cost us the least, and it's going to probably impact the neighborhood the least. And with the ability that, what it would be if we were going to be able to add on to that at some point in the future, if necessary, because of the continuing rise and problems down there. Yeah, I would go with the 15.
And I just want to be clear with the public that this is not in our capital plan. This is not a design that is ready to go out to bid. I mean, if we ever were to proceed, there would be a lot of work that would need to be done and many more meetings before we would get there.
And we have the money to do this, to go proceed to do this.
Yes.
We have it in the grant.
To do,
Yes.
yeah, to
the
do that,
next step
what we're doing
without-
now.
Without committing to anything.
I wonder if I just ask if there's just some comments from the folks in attendance. Any comment online?
Tom's got one.
Tom. Could you state your name, Mr. Bradbury?
I'm Tom Bradbury, and I live at the head of the harbor in 14 Pier Road. And impact relative of, if you're living there, it's a giant impact. If you raise a road 5 feet and you're sitting in your chair, used to looking at the harbor and the cars are above your head, that's a giant impact. And so I'm into climate. I know what's happening, and I know things have to be done, but keeping in mind and looking at it more closely, if you do proceed, like on a case-by-case basis of seeing how the road is designed, is important. When you get around the corner, the fish houses are 10 feet from the road.
Yeah.
So the 1-to-3 ratio you're talking about is out the window.
Yeah.
My worry there also is that if you trap the tide into that space, is it gonna lift up those buildings off of their, are they gonna flow them up? Or, and one of the houses just further past the fish house is on the sidewalk. So it doesn't have a lawn, its front porch is next to the sidewalk. So, and even the houses, the one right on the corner, I mean, maybe a 20-foot yard, mine might be a 30.
Yeah.
So all of this, the grade is taking into the lawn very close to the house itself.
Yes, it is.
And worrying about the runoff from the road into these properties and that sort of thing. It's obviously a concern.
Yeah. I think the road, that came up last night, and the road definitely will be designed so that none of the runoff would affect the private properties. But all the other concern, that was the first one.
And you're absolutely right about the surge. There's a mild surge, you can see it come and go, but there's not waves like you would have at a beach or anything like that. It's a rise.
Right.
And I've always thought, I don't know whether the possibility of using the fence around the head of the cove itself as a barrier. And filling in the bottom rung with materials that can hold back the tide to the whole length of it.
Yeah. Of course, it would still come through around your fish house and all through Fish's Lane.
Seeing what we could do about the fish house
All
stuff.
there through there, yeah.
I always also thought that someday you could lift the fish houses and just go underneath them as well.
There you
So, without losing access to the water, I mean, cutting them off is a taking. I mean,
Right.
That's a
Right.
bad idea.
why have them?
Right.
So even at the.
But lifting.
Even at the 15 feet elevation, we would be impacting the fish houses?
It's something to look at. The access to them, certainly. I mean, it's
Yeah.
gonna be
It's gonna slope,
steep.
it's gonna slope.
And there's no parking?
I won't be able to park there anymore either.
That's right. So, and neither would I.
Yeah.
So, would appreciate your due diligence in that.
Is that something, taking Tom's concerns, is that something you guys could look into if we go to the 15 feet, actually, the actual impact to each property
It would have to be looked
on
at.
that street?
It would have to be looked at.
Yes, that is something
Yes.
that
I mean, I
we,
think I would want that, just
Yes,
so we
I
had
think
that
so too.
information.
I think
Right.
so
So
too.
just
But not
keep
a
in,
general impact, like boom, boom, each property.
right, so just keep in mind that the scope of work did not include that. And so they can do anything we want to pay them to do. And so that would be an additional cost that we would have to bear, is my guess, unless they're starting the Pier Road, Woodard and Curran project or.
So would we
Well,
say it this way, though? Would we say, because this grant is determined on the finishing or the getting to this next steps of one option? And as Lori pointed out, or John, we do not have capital reserve for this. So could this be just that we're finishing the requirements to get to the grant, get to completion that we signed up for the grant? And in my opinion, I would like my stuff, or my thoughts are this, is that I see this as Lori had phased it, or has put forward, that this is something that we've looked at, this is, out of all these options, this is the one that makes the most sense for, what it is, but I would not be looking to implement this, to David's point, because then if we ever did say, okay, we want to do something here, then we've got to come up with the money to do what David had referenced, which is, house by house, investigation to see if this really can happen. I just, I think a lot of us here, we're just very sensitive to private property. And, I don't want to take somebody's property away. I understand the rise, and this is why we've had these resiliency projects. But this one gets tough when we start getting into somebody's literal driveway.
But at least, we have a plot of where our parcels are. At least we'd have some idea of what the base elevation is at each one of those plots.
yeah, I mean, as part of
If
the,
you've got that, then if we're going to 15 feet, people can understand what it's going to be in front of their home.
As part of what we'll do for this preliminary design effort is whichever one we proceed with, we'll do preliminary design plans, which means we would do a grading plan, and that would show the limits of grading. So in that way, we could see, you know, how much, I mean, I don't think we're going to get into a detailed, you know, description of that in our report, but the plans would reflect that. And, you know, I think, as Lori mentioned, you know, to move beyond this step, I think a lot more things would need to happen, right? So.
I think what this shows us is that this, you know, when we're going through these projects and these studies that you guys have been helping us with, it just, in my opinion, it helps us understand what are the ones that are go do, and then what are the ones that, okay, you
Maybe
know,
not right now.
maybe not right now, or maybe not for a while.
All right.
Thank you so much.
And this was just
Yeah,
the first one?
I'm not done.
We're not done. But now,
I
do we
think-
want a sense of, is this enough of a sense of how to move? Do we need to take a vote, or are you?
Are you guys all on board with them finishing the preliminary design report with that alternative?
At a 15-foot alternative?
I am.
I am.
I am.
Yep.
Okay, great, thank you. So the next project, and I think this may be a little bit quicker. So this is the Ocean Avenue reconstruction project, and again, we've been, next slide, in front of you at least once to talk about this project. So yeah, we last presented in March, where we talked about the permitting update and how the permitting discussions that we have had with regulators had changed the design. Since that time, the town has also submitted a FEMA hazard mitigation grant application, which they're waiting to receive word on. And on May 21st, Woodard and Curran met with the fire chief, the police chief, and abutters to discuss the parking on the road, which is what we're going to focus on tonight. So next slide, please. So at this meeting, again, yes, the fire chief, the police chief, and the abutters from 250 Ocean Avenue, and then representatives from Walker's Point were at that meeting, and the discussion was really focused around the potential to replace the parking at Wambi Beach with on-street parallel parking. So if you remember from our last presentation, because of the permitting obstacles and regulations, we're not able to put the parking at Wambi Beach back the way it is today. And so in an effort to put some kind of parking back, we were looking at, could you put some 7 parallel spaces on the road kind of at the crest of the hill? And understanding that, you know, there are abutters that are close there, I think the town wanted to get their feedback on, you know, what would that mean for their privacy and properties. And the feedback that we heard at that meeting was that there were concerns about exactly those things, about privacy, about traffic. I know the folks at 250 Ocean Avenue, they have 2 curb cuts, and people today are currently using those curb cuts to turn around and make 5-point turns. And so I think there was concern that putting the parking, you know, directly across from their driveways would make that even worse. And that, you know, there would be potentially congestion and just concerns about safety for both vehicles and also for pedestrians and for like bicyclists. I know the fire chief and police chief, I think, are here, and they were not particularly in favor of this either. And I have on a subsequent slide we can look at, maybe we'll flip to that now,
So
actually.
the parking is towards Walker Point?
Yeah, if we flip to the next slide. So this right here is where Wambi Beach parking is today. And as I mentioned, because of the permitting regulations, we can't put that parking back. So what we were proposing to do would be to widen the road a little bit here as a safety shoulder, and then put 7 spaces of on-street parking here. So you'd bump out the curb, bump out the sidewalk a little bit, and have those spaces here. It is at the crest of the hill, so you know you're coming up and then going down. It wouldn't be as significant as it is today because we're raising the elevation of the road on both sides of the top of the hill there, so it would be more gradual than what you're seeing there today. But you know, this is the Walker's Point property here. This is one of the homes on that property, and then across the street here, this is that the 250 Ocean Avenue. These are their 2 driveways here.
What about parking on the other side? Is there something that stopped us from
Where?
putting parking on the other side of Wamby Beach? Further
So
up the road?
on this side.
No, I'm sorry, right where David is pointing,
In here.
yeah.
Yeah, but like beyond Wanby Beach, the current.
I don't think that that would work because of the grades. It's hard to see on this slide, but.
Yeah, you're
the-
going up the, yeah.
It's a steep grade.
It's very
Yeah.
steep, yeah, and I think, it's hard to see, but I think we're coming off the road at 3-1 here, so I don't think that that location would work.
There's also a house there.
So what you're
There's a
saying,
house
Very
right there
close to
too.
the
what
road.
you're saying is there wouldn't be any parking.
Yeah, so
what I'm hearing.
essentially what we're looking to get feedback on tonight is whether this parking remains part of the project or not. And the feedback that we've heard thus far is that, people have concerns about privacy, about traffic.
Well, and it's the chiefs that
Security.
have concerns too, it's not
Yes.
just people.
That's
Yeah.
correct, yep.
Yeah,
I'm
and
not
obviously,
really-
obviously, one of the abutters is a unique abutter. And
That's
they-
right.
Their security detail has sent a very
Well, I don't want
specific letter as to what they're.
Yes, yeah, so there was an aide to the president at that meeting, and the Secret Service was at that meeting, and I know that they submitted a letter. That was part of the agenda packet, I believe.
I don't,
I
Yeah,
don't wanna lose
we
any
read-
parking.
What?
We
Well-
can find some parking somewhere, or else I'm not even gonna entertain this.
oh, really? You're
I'm
just,
not happy about it. I'm tired of us losing our parking in the town.
yeah,
I'm tired of it.
yeah.
I
And
would,
every time you turn around, somebody's always trying to take parking away from us. And people need parking. I'm just saying.
I don't view this as parking that's necessary for the town. I view it as parking that is a convenience for people who want to look at the ocean. And primarily tourists looking at the ocean who want to stop and get a few pictures.
Or
I
walk up to
appreciate what
the
you're saying,
bush.
Alan. I just don't know if there's many options at this particular site. If the FEMA or whoever is not going to let us restore that parking that's there, there's very few options we have to put parking, ooh, that was. Oh, something slipped in there. Parking on that road, without impacting the neighbors directly and putting it in front of their house.
Yeah, I mean, this was the most feasible location here, that's why we put it there. On this side of the road, you have that wetland, kind of marshy area, yeah, there's not much room.
Yeah, so I read the letters for the proposed parking area, and I think when we had our last meeting, that's where I had, because we were down there on our tour after the storm, and I questioned, we were gonna be right in front of somebody's driveway, and so that was that one abutter. So I'm not really in favor of the area where the parking was proposed, and I didn't speak at that time, but I thought, the people at Walker's Point were gonna have a problem with that too. But I'm with, so remind me again of what happened that, was it something that was in the proposed design, that's why we lost the parking, or what?
It's on
No.
June.
It was the
It's-
June. It was the
Yeah,
June.
if you remember, it's hard to see on this screen, but there's a green line on the plan here, and
That's the June. Okay.
when we met with DEP as part of our pre-application meeting, they raised the fact that there's this mapped coastal sand dune here, and there's, chapter, I forget what the number is, but of the DEP regulations that dictate what you can do in a coastal sand dune, and essentially all that we're allowed to do is raise the road and build any structural supports that would, as part of that process. You're not allowed to put parking back. And it seems sort of counterintuitive because, it's there today, but that, the DEP will not allow us to permit that.
And the safety shoulder is it the width of a car? Is it paved? What is the safety shoulder?
Yeah, that we were showing it as gravel, and it would be, wide enough that someone could kind of pull off, but it wouldn't be striped, because DEP won't allow that.
What's down there now isn't striped.
No, it's not. So I empathize with your thoughts, Al, about the loss of parking, but I'm also concerned that both chiefs feel that this could potentially be an issue. So on this one, I guess I'd be willing to not have the parking there.
But are you in favor of this parking? Or,
If there was some
Yes.
parking, it'd be fine with me, but I just don't want to lose.
yeah,
I mean, since I've been a select
You should use your mic.
board, I have seen so much parking problems where they want to take more and more parking away, and all of a sudden, sooner or later, you're gonna have a town with no parking. But that's just me.
Yeah,
What
well,
is the difference in square footage between the safety shoulder proposed and the current gravel, whatever we call it, non-parking there now?
There's a pretty significant difference.
So it's half as wide I'm just,
Yeah, I mean, the existing parking, it's hard to see on the slide, but it extends out like maybe to here.
what's the difference between the square footage of the safety shoulder and the proposed parking?
Probably not a lot.
Not a lot? I mean, I'm
Yeah,
just,
maybe a couple spaces.
from a practical perspective,
yeah, well,
But
it's a safety shoulder.
no, but I understand that.
Yeah, it's not
But
parking.
if you
Yep.
got that.
current parking allows the car to park, let's call it front to back.
Yeah,
right?
like 90
Pull in,
degrees, pull
out,
in,
right?
yep.
Right.
Would the safety shoulder allow cars to potentially pull over to check the safety of the car issue that's going on with enough width from driver to passenger side of the car? So that they could pull off to check their tires if they
Yeah,
need to.
if
Exactly,
they were
that's
having some kind of
Totally
safety issue, yes.
the only purpose for that.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Absolutely. Check the air pressure.
So,
Mm-hmm.
Al, you okay? Well, all right, fair enough, but I think we should, we do need to give some direction on this. I think it might be a split vote, but,
Yeah, and I think, let me
Get
just,
Somebody wants to speak.
sure,
yes,
yes.
yes.
Ooh,
We're the 250.
Oh, hi, hi,
Debbie Van Dellen, and that's my husband Dale.
greatest Dale.
And, you know, it's a new house, and we bought it like 3 years ago. We love, love, love it. We love coming here. And everything I'm going to tell you is based on what we've observed with the people parking at Wanby and walking along the path, going over to where the huge anchor is and seeing what the cars are actually doing on Ocean Avenue. So it's definitely going to be a safety hazard. Because if you put those parallel spaces there, and yeah, I know she's raising the elevation on each side, but you still have an incline, and those people are gonna come out, not see the people coming in, and then they're also going to go through our driveway, because we have a U-shaped driveway. They're gonna park there, and they're gonna go, okay, let's go back to town. And they're gonna just go right through the driveway and go back, which means we have to buy 2 gates. And then what do when there's UPS, FedEx, USPS delivery, or my gardener in his big, huge trailer come in, you know, and want to get the lawnmower out? They're going to have to park on that road, on the incline, which is going to take up, I don't know, half a lane, maybe more. So it's going to be a safety hazard. And it's just also going to ruin our property because we have grass out there and they'll be driving over the grass to go out and everything. So, and just to answer your question, I can count 17 cars that can park over there at Wanby right now. So it's not like and if they put the parking there, there's no view. I mean, what's the purpose? What are they going to look at? One of George Bush's houses? Because it looks right out at it. And so it's just, doesn't really seem necessary to even put parking in at
Thank
this
you.
point.
Thank you,
And added extra cost.
thank you, no, appreciate it.
Yeah.
Can I add to a couple of things here? Dale Van Dellen, my beautiful wife.
Yeah,
You know, the thing we see, because we live there full-time in the summertime, the workers and people come by and they park in that safety shoulder, the area that you have now, and they have their lunch and they enjoy it. So it's just not the tourists that enjoy that area. The residents enjoy that area. And they're there all different times of the day to sit and enjoy and paint or do whatever they do there. It's a really important part for them. And I'd hate to see you get rid of it.
It's,
It's a real shame,
No,
but,
Yeah.
you know, but putting the
Thank you.
parking up on the hill where those people have to all get out of their car and walk somewhere.
Yeah.
Either to the driveway of the Bush compound or down to the rocks. And I don't know if you're gonna even keep that open there.
No, thank you, makes,
And I just want to thank you for allowing us to speak.
Yeah.
no, thank you for your comments.
you.
Thank you. Yes.
Thank you also for letting us have an opinion in this matter. My name's Dante DiLorenzo.
Your name?
My name is Dante DiLorenzo. I work for the office of George W. Bush. I
Oh,
am the
thank you.
Bush family representative for this matter.
Thank you.
The Bush family does not support the new proposed parking area. I believe, it sounds like you guys got the letter from the Secret Service expressing their concerns. I'm going to deal with mostly privacy. It would be a big, it was impede on privacy for the family. If you look in that drawing, there's that square right there. That is a house that someone lives in during the summer,
Yeah.
and parking is very close to that. So that is the Bush family's opinion on this matter. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
thank you.
Can I entertain a motion on, or at least let's do a discussion, I guess, on, we will need to give direction. I would suggest that we request that the parking be removed from the current design. The shoulder, the safety shoulder, I think is important to have there as it is. So that's a change that I would be comfortable with. I don't know how others feel.
I just got one more question, and if I missed it, why do you have to reduce the width of the safety shoulder from what's there now?
Yeah, it's a permitting issue. So DEP is not gonna, we met with them, and because that part of the project is within this coastal sand dune, which I'm sort of just going around it. So, they will not, it's against the sand dune rules to construct parking in a sand dune.
Yes, sand is taken loosely here. It's more of a cobble and pebble dune, but it is migrating, and that's the piece that really killed us, is on the far side of the road, you can actually see lobes where during storms that pebbles and rocks are being moved. So it's an active dune. And there are certain laws on active dunes that we can't get around.
And part of the other thing that we learned at that meeting with DEP is previously we had a wave wall in this project. So we were raising the road and then there was a wave wall, and they actually said you can't even do the wave wall. Right. All you can do is it's strictly the road. So that's why.
Thank you.
So, John, to your point, I think the chief and the chiefs, the chief squared think that we have a potential safety issue with it. I think the abutters have a legitimate issue with it. Both abutters, one abutter has a direct impact because it would be right up immediately next to their property, which causes other issues. And I don't see where it's a benefit. So I'm with you. I think we can proceed with this raising of Wanby Beach, Ocean Ave by Wanby Beach without the parking option. Is my opinion.
Joe?
Yeah, I agree. I'd certainly give great deference to the chiefs and the Secret Service and the abutters. So I think going forward without the parking, and also the homeowners on the other side of the street, I'm in favor of that.
This comment or? Fair. Mary Beth?
Yeah, I think, I agree with everybody, because that's just who I am. Not quite. So I think that we can't have the parking that was outlined for the various reasons that the other board members had brought up. But I do agree with Alan's point. So again, I think my direction is that I would agree with the other board members that we ex-nay on that parking, and, we just have the safety shoulder. But I do want to add to my fellow board members, this is what I see as a caution as we proceed through these projects. So we just came off of one, that was at the head of the harbor, where we're looking at potentially, if we do something eventually, we're going to start impacting, private owners, private land. And this one we thought was a little cleaner, and yet it's impacting, again, we're touching abutters. And to Alan's point, we are losing stuff. So I'm picturing our town in the future, if we went all resilient, we would just be able to drive around it. And you couldn't stop and park, and you couldn't really, live next to the roads. But other than that, we'd be resilient. So I think that's where I just want to, I think when we're doing these types of projects, I think we just have to walk with caution, because we can't really afford, as Alan's point, to lose parking. And to our residents' point, these are our own residents that are stopping here enjoying lunch, during their break.
Yeah.
And, we're sort of stripping some things away. I really don't feel good about that part of it.
I hear that. Thank you. So I think you have your direction then?
Yep, I think I just had one more slide, which was just next steps, and that was we need a decision on whether to include the parking or not to be able to advance the design, and our next steps will be to advance the design, go through the permitting process, and then awaiting the FEMA hazard mitigation grant decision. So
Excellent.
that's all.
Fingers crossed on that.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you very much. So moving on to item 13. This is an agreement to keep ladder truck 34, and it's agreement with us and the Goose Rocks Beach Fire Company and the town. And just a little background, as you might be aware, we took possession of the new tower ladder truck, which is an awesome truck that resides here at the village station. Ladder 34 is an older truck. It's housed at Goose Rocks, but it's still in working order. The Goose Rocks Beach Fire Company has approached the chief regarding the potential agreement between the town and the Goose Rocks Beach Company. The agreement would allow the truck to stay in service and continue to be housed at Goose Rocks Beach Fire Station. The town would continue to maintain insurance on the vehicle and provide the fuel. The Goose Rocks Beach Fire Company would agree to maintain the vehicle and pay for all of those costs. Furthermore, the Goose Rocks Beach Fire Company will purchase any additional equipment needed to keep the new tower truck and the old ladder truck both in operation. Normally, that equipment would just have been switched from the old to the new truck. And should ladder 34 become too costly to maintain, the Goose Rocks Beach Fire Company would make the decision to take it out of service. If at any time the chief determines the vehicle is unsafe, it would be taken out of service. And I believe the chief is here to answer any questions and give us his opinion.
Absolutely. I couldn't have said it better myself.
Well, that was
So-
Lori's word, so she says it well.
Just a little bit of a background of where this came from, was back before 2005, when the fire department became a municipal department. There were 4 separate fire stations with 4 separate chiefs, and they all took the responsibility of their area of town to maintain a level of fire protection. And Goose Rocks Beach in 1999 bought this ladder truck, and feel strongly to keep that protection for that area. And again, we already, like you said, we already had the ladder here or on its way. That's when the idea came from one of the members of the Goose Rocks Beach Fire Company, who's here tonight and can help answer any questions, Sean Smith, that we might have. And it's kind of moved from there towards, where we are. It wasn't in the plan originally when I came forward looking for the truck. I don't feel like with this idea, I'm backpedaling on or anything of why we didn't think of this before, or why we weren't gonna keep it, or I came obviously saying, well, I'm not planning on keeping it. But this is a different idea that came since then, and we just wanted to bring it forward and see what happens.
Sometimes plans change for the best.
You betcha.
Yep, yep.
And it provides a quicker response to certain areas with a ladder if it's needed. I mean, it's.
Yeah,
it's
we're gonna
provided.
have a lot of things that towns our size don't have, as far as if one of them is out at training or out of service for maintenance or whatever, we're still gonna have another one. And towns this size don't usually have that because of the expense, and with the fire company stepping up because they wanna keep that protection level in their district. I don't think it's I mean, I wouldn't be here if I didn't support the idea.
Cool.
It's a win-win. I think it's a great idea.
Yep.
Good idea.
Great. So do I have anything else you'd like to say?
Nope, I'm good. Did you have something you wanted to say, or just in case there were questions?
Yeah, just in case there were questions.
Okay.
The agreement would be going into effect when the new tower was gonna go into service. So we just want the board's approval so that when that tower truck comes back in and goes into full service, that we can authorize our President Rainey to sign the agreement with the town to take over the servicing of the truck.
Great. Great.
I'll make a motion to approve the request to enter into an agreement with the GRB Fire Company regarding ladder 2034.
Second.
I have a first and second. Any final thoughts? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you,
Thank
guys.
you.
Thank you.
Yeah, good stuff. Item 14, appoint Frank Gerber to the Shade Tree Committee with the term expiring June 2026.
So moved?
Second.
For first and second, any discussion? All in favor? 5-0. And now that's shellfish, we've done that. Number 15. Consider the Goose Rock Beach Advisory Committee's recommendation to fund educational stickers for trash cans in the amount not to exceed $1,000. That's a lot of money for stickers. But the reason I can speak to this, the reason is we just really don't know what the cost is going to be. This is a campaign to help educate people that they need to keep everything in the bins. As you know, with our new contract, Casella will only pick up what's in the container. And if folks leave things beside the container, it's going to be a mess. So the committee has come up with, Fred Stafford has done a great job of designing stickers that go on the cans that just tell people, keep the stuff in the can, don't put anything beside it.
So, do you want me to make a motion?
Please.
I will make the motion to request to purchase educational stickers for an amount not to exceed $1,000 for the Goose Rock Beach Advisory Committee.
Second.
A first and a second. Any discussion? All in favor? Thank you. The second is another Goose Rock Beach request, this for $126. John Crowder and I have been working with Kennebunk High School to work with their kids to do a study of how the beach grass is doing on the East Arc dunes. And John bought a bunch of stakes that we have set orthogonal to the strand line, and then we're measuring what was there now, what's going to be there at the end of the year, and then hopefully it'll be over the end of the summer, and then it'll be a continuing progress just to monitor that. So for $126, I will abstain from that because it has my name on it.
I'll make a motion to approve.
A second?
All in favor? So 4 and 1 abstention. Thank you. Number 17, consider an abatement of $708.74 for David and Julia Krieg Living Trust at 27 Ocean Avenue. Lori, can I?
Yes, so this was discovered during an inspection of a property. It had 2 units previously. It's been turned into a single family. And so the wastewater is suggesting we remove the billing for 1 unit.
So moved.
Second?
A first and a second. Any discussion? Okay, hearing none. 5-0. Now we're looking at our summer schedule. As you know, in the past, we have opted to take the second meeting of the month, I think it's usually been our tradition, and have it be a warrant signing only. Given the way the summer's shaping up, that may not come to pass, but I would think if you would agree that that would, something we would consider doing.
Yeah, it would be great if we could do that.
So that would be July, and thank you for this, July 24th and meeting and the August
This
28th
28th.
meeting. That we would just set aside as warrant signing only, but obviously if something comes up, we would be entertained.
It's fine with me.
Okay, I don't think we need do we need a motion? We
Yes,
don't.
you do.
We do need a motion.
So moved. You want me to state the
Can you
motion?
second your own?
I-
No.
Do you need me to state the motion?
No, I'm good.
Okay, thank you.
Is there a second?
I second.
He seconded.
Thanks, sorry. Discussion and all in favor? Thanks. So 19, any other business? And what we do, well, you know what we do, Joe, you've watched this many times, so. You know, I didn't welcome Joe to the board, and that was really bad. We should mention, we have a new face, as I'm sure folks in the Zoom land, Joe Moan, thank you for joining us. Yeah, try it out.
And Joe, this was an easy meeting tonight, just so you know.
A lot of information.
Anything you'd like to add, Joe?
Would like to-
Is there any other
business
business you'd like to bring up? Yeah,
mention?
fine, good.
No, no, I have nothing to
Great.
say. Thank you.
Yeah.
Honored to be here.
Dave?
I
thank
just
you.
have two things. One, a big thank you and to the town clerk's staff.
Great.
Tuesday and Wednesday, they did a great job.
Yep.
Um,
It's a record meeting, 16 minutes for the
16
town
minutes for
meeting.
the town meeting, but, you know, they got all 800 and some voters through.
Perfect.
Without any problems. And that the Neighborhood Affordable Housing Trust is scheduled to have its groundbreaking on Thursday, June 28th, the day of the next select board meeting.
Right.
And that will be at 3 to 5 at the Beechwood Ave site. That is the date that has been scheduled for right now. So everyone will be invited to that. There will be a little groundbreaking ceremony with shovels, and then there's also going to be a walking tour in the beginning. If anyone
That's
wants
June
to-
26th would be the
June
Thursday.
26th,
Yeah,
sorry.
Yep, my bad.
Yeah.
What time is it? 3 to 5?
3 to 5. That's all I have.
I'm all set.
I'm all set.
And I'm all set?
So I was going to ask Chief Simeone to come up, because one of the things we've been doing over the last 6 months is we have 3 different internal teams. One that's been working on our artificial intelligence policy, another that was working on employee recruitment and retention, and then we've had a safety one. And so our safety team has been working on making sure we have emergency plans for all facilities, as well as that we do drills and training. And so we are going to be closing the town office in all our facilities early on June 18th in order to undergo ALICE training. And then over the next 2 days, the police department will be assisting each facility with an actual drill. And the fire chief is also going to be doing fire safety training, and we'll practice a drill on where to meet. But I thought that you might give the board a little background on the ALICE training and what we hope to accomplish.
Sure. So I guess the easiest way really to sum it up is this is a training that we're currently doing at the schools. We're implementing that right now. That's gone very well, and we're currently in the process of wrapping up that training with the schools. So this would be training, this is skills that you know, the teachers, the students, you know, any of the employees at the school could implement if, you know, there were any type of threat that were to happen at the school. So whether that might be an active shooter, whether it might be somebody else that comes in and causes a disturbance at the school. It's just some general skills that we're teaching that they can, you know, deploy right away and, really it's a decision of whether to kind of barricade and hold in place, and there's a lot of stuff that goes along with that, or make the decision to get to safety. So it's not school-specific. This is training that, anybody could have, or you could be at Walmart tonight, and if something happened, you could implement those. So it's really applicable for our town staff as well. I think it's good for everybody to have. So we're looking forward to kind of getting that in place. And fortunately, we have 3 SROs that have been heavily engaged in implementing this. So they happen to be getting out of school next week on Wednesday. So timing kind of worked out perfectly because we have them those 3 days. So we're gonna use that time to get the training implemented here too.
Great.
Excellent.
That's good.
Wow.
Thank you, that's good.
I want to hear about AI, but that's later.
Yeah, what?
I want to hear about AI, but that's later.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's later. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you, Chief.
So we will be closing early on June 18th and closing early on June 20th in order to do our drill session, our practicum afterwards. So I wanted to make you aware of that. The only other item is I was hoping the board would authorize town staff to sign off on our 2 new Eco-Maine agreements. So we're supposed to start with Eco-Maine on July 1st. And the town approved these contracts yesterday at the town meeting. And so we haven't changed these since the board originally saw them and approved them. And so I'm looking for a motion for that.
So moved.
Second.
So I have a first and a second. Discussion in favor. Joe, you in favor?
Yes, sir.
Fine.
Thank you. That's it.
So you're gonna close early on the 18th? Is town hall closed on the 19th?
No.
It's not a holiday?
Not for us.
Okay.
I need a motion, please, to approve the June 12th, 2025 treasurer's warrant.
So moved.
Second.
First and second, all in favor? Now Sheila's not here, so I don't know.
So it's now
if
my job. I will make the
Excellent.
motion to adjourn.
Second. All in favor?
None of us know how to second. You always used to second it.
We're not gonna meet, we're only having one meeting.